please help me understand why anyone should be positive, grateful and/or generous and forgiving to devious professional athletes who use an array of banned substances to enhance performance while professing angelic innocence? I really don't get it. Is mechanical assistance in the Tour okay by you too? Do you draw a line when cyclists use electric motors? Or would I just be negative and unempathetic if I termed that cheating and dishonest? What a great question. Obviously, controversy alert again, and it's going to get political. Time to lose some subs. 2,500 was nice for a while, you know. Preach! Testify! In the example, I agree. One pro athlete on drugs giving him an unfair advantage over everyone else who isn't on drugs while talking about how amazing he is 100% worthy of criticism. But that's the kind of douchebaggery that I expect from Donald Drugs.
He didn't pay any federal income tax. So
that makes
if
me
he's
smart.
paid zero...
I mean, he's a real example of cheating. That's just too obvious, right? You know, everybody pays federal tax. I don't pay federal tax because I'm too smart, but here's a tax rate that you need to pay. But that doesn't appear to be the scenario in sport. Evidence in the cases that I mentioned, Ben, Lance, Marion, suggests that the playing field was level. Drugs was being used generally throughout the sport. Any community is entitled to its own moral standard. Sports people are a community, and in cycling there seemed to be a code regarding drug use. Now in athletics, they're actually more dishonest, in that they're taking them, but they openly criticize others when they're caught. Shining example, Carl Lewis. I was a huge Lewis fan until the evidence about his failed drug test came out. Now, I wasn't bothered about the drugs, but if you point the finger at somebody else when you're doing the same thing, that's a line Ted Cruz move. I'm not at their level now, so I'm just looking to be inspired or entertained, but to me, the low character is not the taking if the general sport seems to be doing it. The low character comes from campaigning that your hands don't get dirty when you labour. Now the electric motors, that's an interesting point. If every team had a team leader that was put on an electric motor, but we as the audience didn't know, and the teams themselves were competing with each other over the engineering of these things to make them lighter or more powerful, or literally when you used it strategically in the race, I wouldn't care. The audience can't detect a 2-mile-an-hour difference, even if they're there, let alone if you're watching it on TV. But the sponsors and the organisers, they only invest in top performance sport. HSBC isn't sponsoring the local bike race. Sponsors are drawn to professional sport. That's someone's profession. That's how they make their house payments, how they pay their school fees. Melania Trump had professional speechwriters. That's their profession. And they managed to plagiarise the entire section of somebody else's speech. That somebody else happened to be some Irish chick. Micheals Obama? But even with the motorised bike thing, I find myself conflicted because the line's arbitrary, and I've got a problem with that too. If I come up with a £2,500 carbon bike and everyone else is on a £500 aluminium bike, that's an unfair advantage, and it's permissible. If I've got enough money to buy an altitude tent and sleep in it, that's an unfair advantage, and permissible. If I live in a country at altitude, that's an unfair advantage, and permissible. But if I take EPO, which creates the same effect as the first two, that is the same advantage and banned. If I live in a country that's got good roads, great climbs, and I live in a town that's got an enthusiastic cycling club that I become a part of, that is an unfair advantage compared to someone who's, say, living in, I don't know, Somalia. But let's be fair, the only reason that pro cycling has been blackwashed by the African continent is due to the unlevel playing field because of the high financial bar to entry. I don't see anybody crying about that. The unfairness is all around us, and personally, I just don't like the idea of a government and/or federation telling me what is more or less fair, especially if there was a hierarchy of unfairness, not having equipment or facilities has to rate higher than taking a drug. In terms of gratitude or forgiveness, I can see where you're coming from. I can only really talk from my own experience, and so I will. I've seen Lance's fall on Luzard de Den like 1,000 times, and that got me through some really, really tough years. At school, I read Greek mythology, and I had to do religious studies. And by religion, I mean Christianity, because apparently there were no other religions in the 80s. Now, those books are always talking about signs and curses and oracles and cocks crowing, and I grew up believing in this superstitious hocus pocus. You know, oh, if I catch this ball 3 times, then she'll say yes, or, oh, it's raining, oh, that's a bad omen, that means that we're going to lose. Then I watched the 2003 tour. Lance was going for his 5th win, and no one had ever done that before. So everyone was telling him, this is like the cursed tour. So he turns up to the prologue, and he's not convincing at all for the first time. Then he goes to the time trial, he gets himself dehydrated, and loses to Jan Ullrich and looks even worse. Then Will sucking Bolocki crashes in front of him and he has to go across some field. Then Jan Ullrich rips him to pieces on a mountain stage, which never happens. So now we're at the final mountain stage called Luzar de Den. Now he could have dropped his head. He could have believed in that myth that, oh, the 5th tour is cursed. He was divorced, his training hadn't gone well, blah, blah, blah. Had he done that, I'd have been saying, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you know, some people have excuses to lose. This guy actually has legitimate reasons. And everything is pretty much resting on this stage. He's been attacked by Ullrich already on that day, and he's barely managed to hold on to him. And he gets to the bottom of the final climb, and then, at the crucial moment...
Rider, but Armstrong wants to go right now.
Armstrong was waiting for somebody to pull in the flag, and now it was even...
Oh,
what's happened here? What has happened there?
He crashes. And I'm like, oh, I'm out. Oh my God. How unlucky can one man be? The curse. Those are my thoughts because I'm seeing his journey through my eyes. But he saw his journey through his eyes. And he allowed me to witness how he saw the world in real time.
Chaos at the back end of the bike race. Can he recover? He's on his same bicycle. His teammate is there right now. He's changed up onto the gear to try and get himself. He's got a teammate there. There is Chechu Riviera. Calm down. Don't panic, lads. He's saying he's putting his hand down and saying, don't worry, we can get back into this. Iban Mayer, he's the man who went down with Armstrong as well.
Oh, what is going on?
There's a problem with his pedals. He has a problem with his pedals.
This is what happened. I think his pedal may have broken. This happened. He didn't hit anybody. It was the problem with his pedals.
For the next 17 minutes or so, watching him doing that dismantled like 30 years of negative, superstitious bullshit.
Armstrong is out of the saddle again. He's jumping onto the tail here of
Here
Iban
he goes
Mayo.
again.
But you know, thinking back to that crash, I think and he's going again, he's accelerating again, Phil. This is amazing. This man has been on the ground. He almost lost his manhood on the crossbars a few moments ago, and he's decided he wants to go. He wanted to do something very spectacular tonight because what's happening at the moment is the drama of Armstrong riding away with the bike race.
And that was a seed on that day that eventually created the theory that I have and have shared with you, that it's all perspective. The world exists. The way we choose to see it is all that matters. Before I watched that, given those circumstances, I'd have allowed myself to quit. I'd have let all that negativity get the better of me. But he demonstrated another way. And drugs or no drugs, I'm eternally grateful for that. Regarding forgiveness, I watched Ben Johnson get dragged over hot coals by the press and by the legal system when I was 14, and I hopped on that bandwagon. But demonizing him and his coach, Charlie Francis, who they banned from coaching, damaged the athletics community because Charlie was a genius. We lost a great coaching mind because of it, and we're all the poorer for it. Because in putting his performance, and more importantly his improvement, just down to the drugs, an entire generation lost the exposure to a better training philosophy. For example, Charlie advocated short to long endurance, which makes sense for sprinters, compared to long to short endurance, which was the style of the day. I mean, how many injured sprinters have been further damaged by silencing Charlie's concepts? When we don't forgive, we really just hurt ourselves. I don't want to turn this into a political rant, but, which basically means disregard what I've just said, I save my scorn and condemnation for politicians. Where's the appropriate level of outrage for the cheating behaviour of the DNC? That cheating is likely to have an effect for the next 16 years. 8 years for whoever becomes president, and 8 years to undo it. Where's the mainstream condemnation for a presidential candidate who deliberately broke national security guidelines for her own purposes? Now, do I care about the national security of another country? No. But do I care that citizens of that same country like Snowden and Manning did the same thing for honourable reasons, and yet they found themselves in exile and in prison? Yeah. I really can't think of a better definition of unfair than that. You break the same rules that someone else does with no good intent and you don't get penalised while they pay a ridiculous price. Where's the public outcry? And by the way, it doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat, American or the rest of the world. Every single one of us is going to be materially affected in the negative by the DNC rigging. Webster's have to recall their dictionaries, rewrite the definition of unlevel playing field. 1. DNC. Lance got barbecued on Oprah for over an hour in front of the whole world, as did Marion. If a sports star has to confess and be eternally tarnished for winning something that materially affects a few hundred people, what about if you're up to all kinds of monkey business that is going to affect a global population of 7.2 billion? What happens then? I must have missed the Oprah on that one. Politicians shout so loud about this as a cheap psychological trick, and the public fall for it. If they say that cheating in sports is disgusting and shameful and reprehensible, then we hear that and we think, I guess he's pretty strongly against cheating. Must be an honest guy. But it's like those teens I see in those dramas that are bullying some high school kid for being gay. 'Cause secretly they're gay. Politicians use their stance on steroids as a cheap mask to hide the fact that they're cheating in their lives on a daily basis, except their cheating has a material effect. When they profess innocence when making devious deals that do have dire economic consequences, they do make real victims out of millions of people. That is hard to forgive. Personally, I can muster up forgiveness to a bunch of sports people who are smashing their bodies to pieces for 6 hours a day training and then taking a whole load of stuff to try and heal themselves up so they can do the same the next day just to entertain us all. But maybe that's just me. Right, well, I've slammed politics and religion in this one, and that is not advised in polite society, so I guess I've got this coming. Have your say in the comments, babe. Throw me a thumbs up if you dare, and if you like my vibe, please subscribe. Yeah, it's good while it lasted. Continuing our journey up west, we go to Pall Mall, Twitch, and Big.